The process of releasing and exchanging detainees between the Islamic Resistance Movement Hamas and Israel has been completed as part of the first phase of the ceasefire agreement. The Resistance Movement Hamas and Israel has been completed as part of the first phase of the ceasefire agreement and the legitimization of Gaza. Venezuela commemorated 533 years of indigenous resistance with symbolic activities to pay tribute to the struggle of the indigenous peoples. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum provided an update on the situation in the states most affected by the rains, which have already claimed 47 lives. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The process of releasing and exchanging detainees between the Islamic Resistance Movement Hamas and Israel has been completed as part of the first phase of the ceasefire agreement and the legitimization of Gaza. Buses loaded with hostages illegally detained in Tel Aviv arrived in the city of Ramallah on Monday. The Israeli cabinet released a total of 1,700 Palestinian prisoners, most of them civilians, who had been held without any legal basis in the state of prison. According to academic Basil Farage, the released Palestinian prisoners are likely to be in horrible conditions, as Palestinians in Israeli prisons are subjected to the most brutal and violent torture. It is expected that after being received by their families, the detainees will undergo testing and receive psychological help to reintegrate into society. In Palestine, the bodies of around 200 Palestinian martyrs have been recovered from across the Gaza Strip, most of them in Gaza City. These victims were killed during Israel's genocidal war on the Strip. Meanwhile, an estimated of 20,000 people remain missing as rescue teams and civilians continue searching. On the other hand, on Saturday, the National Campaign for the Retrieval of Palestinian Arab War victims' corpses and the disclosure of the fate of the missing revealed that Israel continues to withhold the bodies of 735 Palestinians, including 67 children. Also in Palestine, the Hamas resistance movement reaffirmed the sovereignty of the Palestinian people and their need to defend themselves against Israeli occupation. In the context of the peace agreement with Israel, Hamas considers necessary to form an independent government to administer the Gaza Strip during a transition period. Subsequently, presidential and parliamentary elections should be held in the West Bank and Gaza. Also, the nature of the mission of any international force that proposes to deploy in Gaza must be defined so that Hamas can decide whether to accept or reject it. The idea of a supreme representative to manage Gaza was rejected, emphasizing that the Palestinian people have the necessary capabilities to govern themselves. And the leader of the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas, will participate in the Peace Summit in Egypt to promote a ceasefire and the reconstruction of the Gaza Strip. Abbas confirmed his participation in the international summit to be held in the city of Sharm el-Sheikh, with the main objective of establishing mechanisms for a permanent ceasefire in the Palestinian coastal enclave. The summit will bring together various international leaders representing a diplomatic effort to end the Israeli offensive and address the critical humanitarian situation in the Palestinian territory. Previously, Abbas had reaffirmed the Palestinian Liberation Organization's willingness to cooperate with all relevant actors. And on Monday, Venezuela urged continued global mobilization until a just peace is achieved for Palestine following progress made in negotiations between Hamas and Israel. In an official statement, Venezuela recalls that this agreement comes after the almost entire destruction of the Gaza Strip, where more than 65,000 people, mostly girls, boys, women, and defenseless civilians, were killed by the criminal bombardments of the Zionist occupation forces in flagrant violation of international humanitarian law. The Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela emphasizes that international popular mobilization, together with global political and diplomatic pressure, including that of Arab and Muslim states and peoples around the world, have been decisive in initiating this process, and affirms that such mobilization must continue until the mandates of international law are fully complied with. Venezuela maintains that true peace can only be achieved through the application of international justice, which entails the investigation and prosecution of war criminals and human rights violators responsible for crimes committed against the Palestinian people. Finally, the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela reiterates its unwavering solidarity with the heroic Palestinian people and its commitment to continue supporting in all international fora the struggle for a just and lasting peace based on sovereignty, dignity, and truth. And on Sunday, the Venezuelan ambassador to Iran, José Rafael Silva Aponte, declared that Venezuela is prepared to defend itself against any action that U.S. imperialism may take. During a meeting at Imam Sadiq University, the ambassador assured that Venezuela has taken political, diplomatic, and defensive measures in response to threats from the United States. Silva Aponte also emphasized that, in addition to preparing the population, the country is conducting military maneuvers to strengthen its defensive capacity. The ambassador underlined the unity between the armed forces and the Venezuelan people in defending national peace. And following the emergency meeting of the UN Security Council requested by Venezuela to denounce the escalation of aggression by the United States, Washington did not stop the threat but expanded its war fleet in the Caribbean. Meanwhile, military exercises continue to defend the country, and in the streets, the Venezuelan people give lessons in peace. The report with Madeline Garcia.
En defensa de la patria y de la soberanía. ¿Listos? ¡Fuego!
Por la patria, el ejército de Bolívar
for the homeland. Bolivar's army is ready for Venezuela to exercise its legitimate defense if the United States attacks.
Así lo establece el artículo 51 de Naciones.
This is established in Article 51 of the United Nations Charter, which Washington hinted it would invoke, with the false narrative that it would be protecting the security of its nation from drug trafficking, which it fictitiously links to President Maduro, solely to achieve a regime change, as it has done in other countries.
En otros países. El fondo del asunto es apoderarse.
The bottom line is to take over the oil, and while military exercises continue, a decision is expected on the three proposals Venezuela requested at the UN, including the approval of a resolution by the Security Council, so that all members, including the United States, respect the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Venezuela.
Pero Estados Unidos ya
But the United States has already responded. It has expanded its South Command fleet. It wants to turn these Caribbean waters into a war zone. This is how the sea sounds now. Dense.
Venezuela está dando la batalla para
Venezuela is fighting to defend peace and to ensure that military exercises remain only a symbol of dignity and defense of sovereignty.
We tell the world that Venezuela is a land of peace, Venezuela is a land of peace, and Venezuela will continue to be a land of peace. Long live the homeland, always loyal, long live the homeland. We will prevail, God is with us.
con cada ocaso
With
donde
every sunset where your weapons do not respond to the threat from the United States, it is one more day where peace wins.
De los ejercicios militares a
From military exercises to a supermarket, this is another reality. There is no panic buying. This is how everyday life is lived, in peace, where Christmas is already being celebrated.
ya se celebra la Navidad.
así luce Caracas.
This is how Caracas, the capital of the country, looks like, as the Venezuelans enjoy life in their nation.
No hay nada que detenga el derecho a la
Nothing can stop the right to existence. It is a lesson in dignity.
A strong contrast not only in San Agustin in Venezuela, is how you see it here, the reality, children playing, people sharing, playing dominoes, going out to the squares. The president decreed Christmas and people are happy, joyful, sharing places to meet.
Las luces adornan la
Lights adorn spirituality. Venezuelans are gaining ground against the escalating aggression of the United States.
Este país se puede describir como
This country can be described as one of the happiest countries in the world. We are not a country at war. We are not people who like these military conflicts.
que nos gustan esos conflictos bélicos.
El contraste es abismal.
The contrast is startling. the aggression of the United States and the peace defended by Venezuela.
Madeline García, Telesur, Caracas, Venezuela.
Now I have our first break coming up. Remember, you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English. We'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. Venezuela commemorated 533 years of indigenous resistance with symbolic activities to pay tribute to the struggle of the indigenous peoples. During the day, President Nicolás Maduro joined the massive march that went through the streets of Caracas to pay tribute to the Venezuelan indigenous peoples, reaffirming the state's commitment to social justice, equality, and the defense of cultural identity. They also paid tribute to the father of the homeland, Simón Bolívar, and to the symbolic remains of chieftains Guaycaipuro and Apacuana. At the same time, the national leader announced the creation of internationalist militia brigades of indigenous peoples to strengthen the comprehensive defense of the nation. Meanwhile, in Chile, indigenous peoples denounced the militarization of their territories in the context of the Day of Indigenous Resistance. Thousands of members of indigenous communities filled the streets of Santiago in a massive and traditional march that commemorates their historic struggle for self-determination and the recovery of their lands. The mobilization was marked by a strong demand for truth and justice for women defenders Julia Chuñil and Maximilian Amaro. Likewise, participants criticized the police response to the protest, stating that it was a cultural and family-oriented event involving people of all ages. And in Ecuador, on October 12, a peaceful march against the government took place, which from the very first minute was repressed by the national police and the armed forces, despite the fact that there were children and elderly people present. In the following report, Gabriela Mena has the details.
Así lucieron varias calles de Quito, capital.
This is how several streets in Quito, the capital of Ecuador, looked, completely filled with smoke and tear gas launched by the national police and the armed forces to repress the protests against the policies of the Noboa government. From the very first minute, citizens vigorously rejected the executive's measures and against the policies of the Noboa government. From the very first minute, citizens vigorously rejected the executive's measures and expressed that they would not give in to the threats of the uniformed officials.
It is clear that the union of the indigenous movement, workers, and the people is the only alternative to defeat the government's policies. In this context, we tell Noboa that we are not afraid of him, damn it, nor the state of emergency in some provinces, nor the fact that he has mobilized the military troops, declaring war on the people to intimidate the mobilization of the Ecuadorian people.
The
day that began peacefully was immediately repressed, with protesters condemning the violation of their right to protest. Despite the attacks, more and more protesters joined in.
We are currently gathered here for a march in which we will raise public awareness.
However, the police attacked and chased the protesters despite the presence of elderly people and children. Meanwhile, citizens continue to express their rejection of the government, shouting slogans such as "This is not paid for, it is the organized people, out with Noboa, out and come, people, let's fight." And no one is going to silence us in the face of police abuse.
It is a rejection of all the measures suffered by the people, the lack of education, the lack of health in general, and the authoritarianism of a government that does not have the capacity to govern.
The
police did not give the protesters a break. Several of them were injured by blows, tear gas canisters, suffocation, and shock in the face of intense repression. Even the national and international press was attacked by the uniformed officers. Today, you can't even protest peacefully. The first thing they do is attack. Who are the military and the police?
I consider the police and the armed forces to be enemies of the people. I currently view them as criminals, as murderers who have nothing in common with us. They should be on our side, alongside the people.
Efectivos policiales y militares.
Police and military personnel detained and arrested several protesters without explanation. According to preliminary figures, more than 120 citizens were reportedly arrested during this day of national strike in Quito.
Con cámara de Francisco Guayasamín, Gabriela Mena, teleSUR Ecuador.
And in Peru, following Dina Boluarte's removal from the presidency, many are calling for her detention to prevent her from fleeing and to ensure she faces justice over corruption and human rights abuses.
La vacancia de Dina Boluarte no ha solucionado.
Dina Boluarte's resignation has not resolved the political and social crisis facing the country, and the families of the victims of the massacres of 2022 and 2023 are demanding that she be imprisoned.
Nosotros lo que pedimos es cárcel para
What we are asking for is prison for Dina Boluarte, prison for her, for the murderers, and for all those who have protected her and concluded with Mr. Dina Boluarte. That is the main thing. That is what we want. Not just the removal of Ms. Dina Boluarte. That does not solve the problem. What we are asking is for prison for that murderer.
para esa asesina.
Para la mayor parte de la ciudadanía,
For most citizens, Congress removed Boluarte because she is no longer useful to the interests and is harming their electoral ambitions.
Y con ello, el Congreso no se lava la cara.
This does not clean up Congress. This does not clean up Congress acts. And these men do not become heroes. These men must be clear that we, as victims, and the Peruvian people will not forget that they are as guilty as Mr. Dina Boluarte, because they are the ones who have kept her in power.
Ellos son los que la han sostenido en el poder.
aunque Boluarte ha dicho que no saldrá del país,
Although Boluarte has stated that she will not leave the country, her detractors are demanding her immediate arrest to prevent her from fleeing and to ensure that she faces justice for the nearly 10 investigations against her.
Eso nosotros lo que estamos pidiendo como
That
organización.
is what we are asking for as an organization, as direct victims. We are asking that she be arrested once and for all. We want to see her behind bars because nothing guarantees that she won't escape at some point. With so much corruption in our country, you can trust anyone. And with this president who has taken office, a man who has been accused or investigated for rape, we cannot allow it. And we do not trust him. And we will be vigilant.
Estaremos vigilantes.
para diversos sectores políticos y sociales,
For various political and social sectors, the appointment of José Heri to replace Boluarte does not guarantee an adequate transitions for the upcoming elections in April of 2026.
Que se vayan todos y que realmente
Let them all go and let us truly be rebuild our nation. Peru needs to be rebuilt, and in order to do so, we definitely need to enter into a constitutional process that will result in a new constitution.
que signifique una nueva constitución.
en el actual panorama peruano,
In the current Peruvian landscape, public opinion expresses its distrust of the political groups in Congress, whom they accuse of wanting to remain in power forever. For this reason, citizens are announcing new protests and marches to demand that they all leave now.
para exigir ahora que se vayan todos. Desde Lima, para Telesur, Ramiro Angulo Maquiavelo.
We now have our second break coming up. Before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English, you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage, and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. A final short break, don't go away. Welcome back. In Mexico, the 9th Continental Meeting of Solidarity with Cuba held in Mexico City outlined new strategies against the blockade. Delegates from 25 countries consolidated their support for the Caribbean nation through a final declaration and a joint action plan with the promise to intensify the fight against the economic, commercial, and financial blockade imposed by the United States. The debates focused on promoting economic solidarity as a way to break the siege, encourage regional coordination and integration of social movements, and counteract the U.S. media war that seeks to destabilize the Cuban government. This continental meeting reaffirmed the role of solidarity among the peoples of America and reaffirmed that support for Cuba is an unrenounceable principle for the region. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum has launched a new tour across several states recently hit by severe rainfall that caused widespread damage. According to her social media post, the visit will cover the 5 states hardest affected by the storms that struck on October 9th, leading to the flooding, road blockage, and infrastructure collapse in more than 111 municipalities. The president's agenda includes evaluating ongoing relief efforts, coordinating with local authorities, and ensuring that federal support reaches the most vulnerable communities. Sheinbaum emphasized that from the onset of the emergency, federal and state agencies have been working together to reopen damaged highways and restore connectivity in isolated areas. In this regard, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum visited the state of Poza Rica on Veracruz and showed her support to residents affected by devastating and deadly floods. The Mexican president also announced that her administration is preparing special assistance for those who lost a family member and for those who suffered the total or partial loss of their homes. Sheinbaum told the affected people that, for now, her government's priority is to speed up cleanup efforts and the distribution of food and drinking water to overcome the emergency, which affects a total of 69 municipalities in Veracruz. Meanwhile, in western Alaska, the remnants of Typhoon Halong brought hurricane-force winds and catastrophic flooding to coastal communities, pushing entire houses off their foundations. The major storm caused by remnants of Typhoon Halong hit coastal communities with massive storm surge, flooding, and hurricane-force winds of 100 miles per hour. According to Jeremy Sedek, spokesperson for the State Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Management, rescue aircraft were sent to the tiny Alaskan villages of Kipnuk and Quilingok. The representative said Sunday evening that search efforts were continuing and that they were still trying to determine exactly how many people hadn't been accounted for. In Guatemala, more than 3,000 dancers participated in the first national meeting of conviteros organized by the government. The celebration coincided with Indigenous Resistance Day and was therefore denounced as a folkloric distraction by farmer organizations. Santiago Botón with the details.
More than 3,000 conviteros from 14 departments of Guatemala transformed the historic center into a spectacle of color and tradition. It is the first meeting of conviteros convened by the Ministry of Culture.
Todas y todos ustedes nos están trayendo.
All of you, the Plepel, are bringing us a crucial part of our culture and daily life of the diverse peoples of our Guatemala.
Diaria de los diversos pueblos de Guatemala.
Los conviteros son danzantes enmascarados.
The conviteros are masked dancers, and their dance is intangible cultural heritage. Despite this recognition, it is easy to forget that each mask also hides a history of oppression and conflict.
We come from the Ixtal region. We were victims of the armed conflict that took place. We were part of the violence that was experienced. Our rights were violated at that time.
En medio del colorido.
Amidst the colorful celebrations, a peasant march emerged denouncing a racist state that seeks to bury the day of indigenous resistance with a folkloric distraction, the protesters said.
We are happy to do this today and that it is being done by people who are aware of the significance of this day for indigenous peoples and for the social movement.
Definitivamente es una burla.
Están convirtiendo.
They are turning the genocide against their own peoples into a celebration.
Los manifestantes señalaron que
the protesters pointed out that the government is trying to disguise the harsh reality facing indigenous peoples while celebrations are being held. Peasant organizations are being threatened with thousands of eviction and arrest warrants.
Siguen los desalojos violentos.
Violent evictions continue in the communities of Alta de la Paz, Petén, and other regions of our country.
Las organizaciones campesinas cerraron.
Peasant organizations closed the first meeting of conviteros with the demand for respect for collective rights violated since the Spanish invasion of Abayala.
Santiago Botón, teleSUR, Ciudad de Guatemala.
We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. So join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For teleSUR English, I'm Alberto Matos. Thanks for watching.